So, good evening, everyone. A big hello to all our viewers on the live broadcast session by BioRx, which is a powerful think tank for healthcare. A quick introduction about me. My name is Vishal Gandhi. I'm a CEO and founder of a company called BioRx Venture Advisors. We are an investment and strategic advisory firm dedicated to all facets of healthcare and with a special emphasis on digital healthcare. We incorporated this company in 2012 and had a good fortune to work with about 80 plus companies on making their businesses more investable. And recently also co-founded a vertical called Indian Healthcare Angel Vertical to deepen our commitment to promoting niche healthcare companies. So at the outset, I'd like to thank VOH under the dynamic leadership of Dr. Naveen Nishchal, dear friend, for the opportunity to moderate and host a most exciting session, on digital healthcare gaining momentum from global pandemic. It's so wonderful to have host this evening, one of our health tech emerging business leaders in India, and I have a pleasure in introducing to all of you Deepak Sahni, who does not really need an introduction to healthcare fraternity. And I think his startup venture is becoming a household name, as particularly post-pandemic. So let's welcome Deepak, the founder and managing director, Healthians, on very special episode of Futuristic Friday Talk. So just to set the context,
Thank you, Vishal, and I think thanks VOH. Thanks for the very kind and appreciating words. Your words have been really encouraging for us.
Great. So let me set the context. So in this unprecedented pandemic challenge, I think we've all witnessed the potential that healthcare sector, actually has seen. And I would like to congratulate each of the healthcare stakeholders to be able to contribute to this development and reinforce that the healthcare is a sector of the future, and more particularly pandemic has taught us that, and so situation like where PPEs, medical device, pharmaceuticals, we have seen a situation, just before pandemic started, we actually had a situation of scarcity. And from scarcity, within 6 months, we have seen a situation of abundance. And I think this is the power of healthcare, and this is the power of healthcare in India. And we are very fortunate to actually be being able to serve this sector directly, indirectly. And I think one of the things that really set and accelerated its journey as a sector in healthcare is digital healthcare. And I think it's so amazing to see that, we have a person like Deepak who will actually be talking about how digital healthcare is going to be another driver for disrupting healthcare. Because I think healthcare models are disruptive in last 6 months. But disruption has to be actually seen in next couple of years. But I think the seed has already been sown. And I personally have seen, the digital healthcare companies that I've been supporting. It was very difficult for them to actually turn into revenue-making companies. And then some companies which turn revenue-making, very difficult to turn them into profit-making companies. And I'm extremely happy to say that at least this time, in last 6 months, I could see that some of them actually turned around. And this is a great encouragement. So as I said, that the biggest disruption in this pandemic is digital healthcare as an opportunity. And it's a very exciting one. Telemedicine was never adopted as a mainstream in India. But today, I think you can't, if you're in healthcare delivery business, telemedicine has to be a central point of your business. And with this note, let me turn to my panelist, a dear friend, Deepak, for him to share his insights. So Deepak, I'd like to start with, asking you about brief about your journey. How did this Healthian came into being? I'm sure there must be some incidents, passion, and of course you have been supported by wonderful people as investors, early seed stage investors. So it will be great if you can share with us your journey in a couple of minutes from now.
Sure, absolutely. So as you rightly said, it's been a fantastic journey and obviously testing times as well, like every startup goes through. So we started back in 2014 and this is one of my third ventures. I think less people know that I'm a serial entrepreneur. Started back in 2003. My first and the foremost business started when I was 19 only, and I used to assemble computers. And I've always been a tech guy initially. Started my digital IT business back in 2004, and followed by a medical tourism business back in 2009. And both of these companies were simultaneously growing in multi countries as well as multi cities, and we have worked with a lot of healthcare people during that particular time. And that's where the passion in 2004 from being a tech entrepreneur to becoming a health entrepreneur started, when I started interacting with key doctors coming to India and started realizing that they know everything about their domain, but technology is something that they don't understand. And I understand technology and healthcare is something that I like. So why not integrate it together? And that's where the journey started in 2004, and it grew it from there. I think in 10 years, we worked with almost 500 odd hospitals across the globe, some 700 odd doctors, 1,000 odd clinics. And obviously, the turning point was entering into medical travel business, and we were pioneers to bring medical travel as one of the businesses in India. It's worked with a lot of hospital chains out there. And finally, in 2013, after doing it for good 10 years, being half of my time spent into the hospitals only, I started looking at that this particular industry is losing on trust, right? And this trust was basically patient and a doctor trust, or a patient and a hospital trust. And while I was in the Western part of the world, I've always realized that this is the most important factor in this space. And there is a relationship that the patient and the doctor has to get engaged into. So that's where the thing got started and hitting me in terms of why in India the trust is actually getting deficiated. So we started working on and on the subject, stating that the hospitals or the doctors are basically on one side of the business, which is more of treatment driven, and it is more about people sickness, and they're not proactive or they're not preventive, right? And the larger population in India is actually at the line of preventive. So you are actually trying to make your hospitals based on profitable based on the surgeries that you do, rather than how many people are not, how many people are preventively being taken care of. So in 2013, I started looking at that. Can I probably come out of this treatment business, and can I do something which is preventive? And that's where the thought process started. I sold off both my companies in 2013 and hired a market research firm, finding out what is that actually make people to land into a hospital. And the research, all with the background data, the research revealed that about 70% of people have lifestyle disease issues when they spend on healthcare. And if your lifestyle is being corrected, then you probably can avoid a lot of stuff. And for that, you need to know the things quite in advance. And you should know that changing that lifestyle can probably save you a lot of money and a lot of expenses to healthcare. And entering into diagnostic was basically the starting point for that, because we wanted to catch hold of people when they are not that sick, they're not acutely sick. At the same time, they're preventively checking themselves. And we understand that the first thing that a doctor writes today is a blood test for any kind of investigation. Or you get these people on the pharmacy shop for the first time. We chose to be on the diagnostic side because we knew that this is a little high margin business than being into the pharmacy side. And finally decided to start Healthians, which basically the word came out from healthy Indians. We wanted to make a community of people who are healthy. At the same time, the vision was to add 10 healthy years to every Indian's life. And that 10 years is basically coming in from, if I catch you younger at 29, 30, tell you how you are doing by actually doing a test on you, and then assisting you and guiding you to tell you that these are the few things that you should do to alter your lifestyle and correct your report, so that probably the last 10 years or last 20 years of your life is even much more better and much more healthier, right? Because the lifestyle diseases are not the killer diseases immediately, but they bound to happen, and then probably they are good at your 30s, they trouble you at 40s, at 50s you are completely dependent upon your medications and all, and at 60s you probably could be bedridden. So that's how it affects you over and over the time. But if you rightly know it on the right time, one of the I'm just talking about a small research. One of the things that I got to understand from people is whenever they used to see their report, that's the only 1 month they used to change their lifestyle, and then they used to forget and get back to their normalcy. So actually, the report seeing is one of the really a mirror for a lot of people to understand where they're leading forward to, and it immediately changes everything. The guy stops to take sugar, the guy stops to take tea, or maybe he starts exercising, he goes to the walk and all that stuff. And then after 6 months again, he's back to his track and then there. So it was very, very important for us to make something wherein we can show him how you are progressing every 3 months, keep him motivated on what he is doing is right, and that can actually lead him to a good lifestyle. And that's what we tried doing at Healthians. And a lot of people know we initially started this to be an aggregation model. And coming in from the healthcare, within 3 months, we realized that the aggregation is not going to work. And we became an end-to-end diagnostic business today by obviously disrupting this market to become a first B2C on-demand diagnostic business. And that's where we grew. So the rest is the history. In 2014, we started, 15 we sent to go to market. And since there, it's been 6 years that we have completed. Now in about 50 odd cities and more than 1.5 million lives being touched.
Great. So I think I really like what you said, because most of the healthcare entrepreneurs that I interact with, they simply don't do any research, the market research. And I think knowing the pulse, what is really required, I think it's very, very important, and that makes the pillar very intact. And you talked about trust. And I think one of the things when I interact with people in healthcare fraternity and outside healthcare, and they feel that, there are only one or two brands that they can trust in healthcare. And what is it that will actually drive to make this deficit of trust, to actually make a brand which can be trusted? Because there is a scope. You just can't have one or two or three brands which are trusted and that's about it. Considering 80% of the market, diagnostic market is unorganized, so I think there is a huge scope to actually build a trust-based brand. What is your thinking in that direction?
Sure. So as you rightly said, there are limited brands that people trust. When you go and do a market survey on the brands, you would realize that probably they have top of the mind recall for 2-3 of them. I think if you really go more deeper, as we went into, to find out why is those brands trusted, there was nothing different that they were doing from an unorganized brand, except they are old in the system, except they have a wide reach, except they advertised more than anybody else. It was the first thing that we sensed. The second thing that we realized is that the first thing which comes from a letter T, trust, is also the transparency, right? So now trust needs a clear transparency. Now, when I am actually believing on one brand, I'm not actually checking anything, but I really want to know who's coming at my house, who's collecting my sample, where is it going, what temperature it got transferred at, which lab is it getting tested, and on what parameters do I understand that this particular report is going to be accurate, right? So there's a lot of steps which a layman does not understand, right? So it was very important for letting people know and have an experience wherein you first have to make people aware. You have to give them awareness on the topic of how is the accuracy derived in this particular sector, which a lot of people do not want to do, because they will know if the customer becomes really, really savvy, he can ask right questions, right? But at the same time, the awareness that you give it to your customers, the power that you give it to them, gives them a kind of a confidence and a trust on you. And that is what we have been doing from the last 6 years. While we also faced a lot of issues when we initially started, wherein a customer might be trusting me, but the doctor who's seeing the report is probably saying, okay, I don't know this company, can you go to this particular lab or that particular lab and get the result done again, right? And we have seen all that happening, and by the grace of all the work, hardworking things that we have done, I think the things that has been a history now, and I think the results are because we've got 70,000 reports going out in the hands of doctor every day. So people understand that this is something which is validated, and we have given that kind of trust. So I just give you few things that we have done. Number one thing that we have done is given a complete sample transparency. So when a guy come at your home, from there till he reaches to a lab, you can trace your sample, you can trace the temperature, you know exactly at what temperature or what time it reached what kind of a lab. When your result comes back, you also get a QR code, which is an accuracy check, wherein you scan the QR code, it tells you at which machine, which place, which pathologist, signed this particular report, right? Then
Wow.
we made it the first thing that if you want to visit any of my lab, you don't have to bother about. I'll send a guy, will pick you from your home, will take you to the lab, and will drop you back home. You should see that at what facility does it getting tested, because the first relevance that people have in the mind is there is no lab. Somebody takes my sample and gives me a report, right? How do I know it is actually getting tested? And that was a big
Yeah,
thing in this
because
industry.
in 2015 there were so many brands which came forward, and as they were aggregating, so nobody could actually trust, and nobody had clue who's actually doing it. They thought
Yeah.
it's just a game of arbitrage.
Absolutely. And I've asked a lot of my customer myself, how do you gauge accuracy and trust? They say, some said, because that lab is expensive, so we believe they are accurate. Because
Yeah,
I know, I see their board, everyone around, every 2 kilometers, I see the board of this brand. That is why I see it is accurate. And because they exist from 25, 30 years, 40 years, my father also used to go to them. That is why they are accurate. Nobody had a right answer that on what parameters are they accurate. So we have
yeah.
given that right parameters to people to understand that there is a technology today to have that kind of a transparency, and you should know how is that your samples are getting transported, how is your lab is functioning, who's signing your report, what are the testing quality controls happening in that particular lab is what you should know, right? And you
Great.
should also know the honest pricing that we have given to consumers, stating that there is no middleman commission. So this is the honest price that you get, and you get the similar or high quality at this cost is what gains a lot of trust. And we are happy that people have accepted that widely. And we are running at around 75 to 80% annual repeats, which shows clearly that the consumer who's taking the report back is completely satisfied, and they're happy with the entire experience that they have.
So, Deepak, how much of percentage of your business today comes from B2B to or B2C? Like you're trying to build a consumer brand, or it's like you're trying to you also have a strategy where you're actually looking at partnering with hospitals or other stakeholders in healthcare delivery ecosystem.
Sure. So largely, as you know, when we entered this space, the idea was very, very clear to become a B2C brand. Clearly, because we wanted to do something which is very, very patient centric, right?
Yeah.
And and also to reduce that deficit which has been increasing. So if I am the lab which only service you when a doctor or a hospital is there in between, then that trust is again the same deficit kind of a thing. That what is their arrangement? Is the doctor writing it correctly? Is this lab doing it correctly? What is the arrangement between these two
Actually, there's
guys?
always something at the back of the mind that why the hell he's saying that I should go to Piyush Imaging Center. Why not to Mahajan Imaging Center, And a person
Absolutely.
like me, I generally ask this question. And I know that there could be a cutback mechanism. But then at the end of the day, it's a diagnostic which is going to define the whole treatment. And you may be spending only 3% of the treatment cost in diagnostics. But then 97% of the cost is actually guided by the 3%. So how could you go wrong? And this is something which I feel people just are looking for the cutbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, there are a lot of doctor friends, and I can tell you that there are a lot of doctors who are not in any of these practices. But at the same time, because the deficit is so much that even the fairer ones, when they are writing a fair test or a fair thing, the consumer at his mind or a patient at his mind is calculating that this doctor is writing it because it could be a larger bill, and he's keep trying writing. The more the pad is filling in, the more expenses I'm going to pay. That's the kind of deficit we need to end actually, right? People
Yeah.
should know, because they should, like, if you go to US
And
today,
it's
you
not
just
restricted because to only diagnostic. Trust me, it's also with medicines, Like
absolutely.
somebody who's taking 3 medicine and you go and show to a specialist and he'll put another 10 medicines and like without realizing and without telling you whether there's actually a need or not. And you have no idea. They just don't even tell you.
So I think the people should blindly trust these institutions, and the institutions also has to do a lot to gain this particular trust. And that is why we started first of stating that we are a patient centric brand. Our patient centricity says you need to give convenience, you give to give me affordability, transparency, reliability, and we worked on everything. We still call it as a BCAFR model: better, convenient, affordable, faster, reliable.
How
And
many
that's what
lives have you touched so far?
labs.
How many lives as
Oh,
individuals that
so
you have actually?
we have over 1.5 million customers
Wow.
in the last 6 years, and we have seen there are families who are our customers rather than one customer in a family, right? And that shows that one person gets the test done, sees an experience, and then slowly the whole family becomes your customer. And this is only because if you are a patient-centric brand, and then they trust you.
So, centricity, as you said. So, you are a sickness brand or you are a wellness brand?
So, see, when you are making a brand, probably when you go by the vision that we have, we will call ourselves to be a wellness brand, right?
Fantastic. I think
We,
that's where the large opportunity is.
yeah, we want to touch base people not only when they are sick. That service is already available with us. And most of the tests that you do for a wellness and a sickness is 70% overlap, right? So it is not that there are too much of a differentiation in the test. So top 100 test is 90% of the market. Now this is for the wellness people also and the sick people as well. But how
Great.
do you change lives? You can't change lives of touching somebody saying, okay, you gave me a prescription, I gave you a report, and my duty ends. We actually started from there. We said, you come to me, I tell you what test to be taken based on my algorithm. Then I hand over the report. Then I give you a doctor consultation. Then I give you a diet consultation. Then I give you a wellness coach. And then I tell you, come to me after 3 months and see how well you have performed, how well your parameters are moving. And if you come to me after 5 years also, I'll be able to show you your last 5 years history to tell you that in the last 5 years, these are the factors that has affected your health and it's not something else. So if you really look at, when you go to a doctor today, he looks at your last reports and start writing,
Yeah.
right? But if you show him the last 5 years, he can actually make a better decision because he knows in the last 5 years, the weight of the person has gone 20% up. The BP of the person accordingly has gone 30% up. The BMI has changed, right? And that's how where the things are going bad rather than just focusing on one thing, why is hypertension, why is getting diabetic. So all
Yeah,
that is
and
something that
it's actually unfortunate. I have had some experiences of, taking consultations from corporate hospitals, and every time I have to carry a physical file, and this is a corporate brand, so I have no idea when do we actually have OPDs paperless, when we can actually, when do we have the hospitals becoming smart? So we are talking of digital healthcare, but I really feel digital healthcare, the growth what we have seen is only in telemedicine, and I think that happened because of the pandemic push. But
yeah.
in terms of really culture, of transparency, increasing trust, and working towards the vision of inclusive healthcare, I think that seems to be missing at all fronts. Whether you talk of the doctor owner or a hospital owner, or you talk of the very various policymakers, things are still very silo. Because I've had experience of actually taking my mom to a hospital, and she was there for a couple of days, and I can give you a kind of a very realistic view that most of the things that we are talking in terms of digital healthcare, that this is going to happen, digi doctor, EHR, all this, seems to be like a KPI opportunity, but doesn't seem to be applying in our hospitals in tier 1 and tier 2. So I have no idea where is the growth in digital healthcare. I wanted to really share and get your views on this.
Sure, absolutely. So I think if you really see, I think it is more of changing names, but we have been hearing about an EMR or a digital healthcare or digital health mission since last 10 years, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Now, one is we don't have an integrated system in place. We have recently just replaced our traditional hospital information system into some kind of a digital hospital information systems. And these are not even more than 5 years, 10 years old, right? So if you really look at one, there has to be one approach of integration. But in healthcare, what we see is that if the patient is to me, and so just a small example, you go to a particular hospital and they do the diagnosis, and God forbid, they tell you that you probably need a surgery, right? The first thing that you look at is, I need a second opinion, right? How easy it is to get the report from that hospital and go to another hospital and show him the same report and say, give me a
It's
second
actually
opinion.
a struggle. It's actually a struggle. Yeah.
It is. So it is because you want to hold your customer back to you. You have to understand that this is almost like your Vodafone SIM card that you can actually port into any of the mobile because it belongs to you, right?
Yeah.
So people and hospital has to understand that the health data belongs to the patient and it is not belonging to them. So the first difference that has to come clearly is that the patient getting aware, government's clearly defining who owns the data. Data is owned by the patient and not anybody else. Now, from a
Yeah.
single OTP, I should be allowed to share my data with anyone that I am going into without getting the test done again and again. So first, you will be saving a lot of cost, because today, if I have got my test done here and I go to the second hospital and I say I might need second opinion, they say, no, we don't believe in that report. You get the test done again here.
Actually, it's not about going to the second hospital. I can tell you it's going to the second location of the same hospital, and they'll say we have no access to the data what is stored in Basant Kuch versus Noida. So it's such a struggle. It's just the same brand, but still there is no compatibility. There is no access.
Yes. So I think the first thing that we have to give to people is that your data is owned by you. And accordingly, when this particular new systems or EMR control systems comes in, it's almost like your Aadhaar card or an OTP based systems wherein you can probably ask, do you have this? Okay, this is my code, open the data. You go to the second hospital, do you have this? This is my code, open the data. And that data should centrally sit in. That should be the first step when you can actually talk about a digital healthcare. And then slowly you can connect your prescriptions, your diagnostic tests and all. And we from 2015 have made systems that within a plug and play, our data can be integrated with any of the worldwide systems, because it is on the same standards that you need any kind of lab data of any person to be transferred in any of the format worldwide. It's easily transferred. So I think the new tech companies have built it. The traditional system has to look at it, and we have to little bit start thinking about that is the future. I can't hold back the consumer data or a patient data thinking that he will remain my patient because I have his data.
Great. So, Deepak, when do we see Healthian going for an IPO? Because all the good brands are already have done a phenomenal IPO, and the trading multiples are amazing. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing your IPO and subscribing to it.
Thank you. So surely you will see that we are working hard towards that, and I think 23 and 24 is the right time. So we are very close to our profitability hitting in the next 6 months, and I think we
Does
need
that
to
make
stay
you a
2 years.
unicorn? Does that make you a unicorn in next 6 months? We don't have actually a single unicorn in health tech, and I'm really looking to you leading this effort.
If you really see out there, the largest player in the diagnostic is hardly 3% of the market at maybe 150, $160 million revenue, right? While obviously the valuations here are obviously 10x of the revenue, so you become a unicorn by that time as your valuations are. But then I think it is not 150; it's a $500 million revenue business that one single brand can reach up to. And the idea is to not stop at where people have stopped. Idea is to go beyond that. But as you know, in terms of when you talk about IPO, our sweet spot for our industry is anywhere when you are touching on 400 to 700 crores annual revenues, you are an IPO company. And
Great.
obviously the EBITDAs are always stronger here. For a B2C brand, it is little negative initially, but it becomes positive, and we are very close to becoming positive. And I think we need stay 2 years, 2.5 years from there to be of that particular level and being likable to be subscribed by the people.
Perfect. Okay, so what do you think, the role of insurance to drive digital healthcare holistically? Because, you have National Digital Health Mission, but at the end of the day, people like you, me, are not going to be dependent upon government for our care, right? So when do you see the private healthcare insurance driving the growth of digital healthcare, which we have actually seen in other part of the world? But when do you see this happening in India?
I think you probably need, so I would not demotivate people by saying it will take a decade, right? But I'm surely at a realistic side, it will take about 5 years from here. Even if we start thinking right now and start changing the ways that the things have been working right now. See, there are two things. So to progress, you need one thing, you need a faster policy making, right? And you have to also change the way the things have been moved. So when you establish something like IRDA, you made rules because there was something happening out there because the things were not digital, right? Now those rules does not work when you are actually a digital company. You need to bring a product. And I think a lot of insurance company wanted to bring a COVID product, which took them about 3 months to 6 months to 8 months now to get an approval to bring that product out, right? If they are going to take that kind of time, the things are not going to do that. And now insurance understands. So insurance for me in 3 years is going to be same as your motor insurance. If you do well, if your health is good, you will save premium. If you are not good, you should pay extra premium, and that's the way it should be, right? So
yeah, but that is only going to happen when you have digital records, you have technologies like blockchain and other potential technologies being actually employed.
Absolutely. And if you really look at the challenging times teaches you all that. So for pre-COVID, all your insurances or health insurances needed a checkup. That checkup also needed you to go to a diagnostic center and get maybe a TMT or maybe an ECG done. Now, from last 8 months, that's not happening because nobody's going to go for that checkup, but still the insurance is happening. They have adopted the digital way of doing it, right? So there is always a possibility, but somebody has to overlook and somebody has to bypass that old traditional systems, and that's where you lead into. So I think the new age companies are thinking about it. It's an integrated approach. Insurance closely has to work with diagnostics, primary care, tertiary care, pharma, because this is all integrated, and that's where the things are going to be really, really realistic. And I think a good timeline for that could be next 3 to 5 years.
Great. I think we had a wonderful session, and I wish we could go on and truly engaging discussion, but unfortunately, that's the time we all have today. And thank you so much for wonderfully illuminating and inspiring session, Deepak. I learned a lot. I could validate some of my thought process. Thank you so much. I'm not sure about others, but at least I learned a lot from you. And I'm sure the points, the themes that we touched today, has really provoked a positive thinking and triggered some sort of a timely interventions within the healthcare community in India and around the world, and play an important part in, taking us all forward together. And our viewers and audience like me are grateful to you for sharing your precious time and esteemed opinion with us. And we hope to have you again very soon with us. And dear viewers, we at VOH really appreciate your tuning in today, and we hope you enjoyed. And it's time to sign off. Thank you everyone for your kind attention. And Deepak, good luck. And I'll be personally very happy to see that health tech #1 company gets unicorn status, and that's Healthians. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Vishal, and thank you everyone for viewing it.
Great.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah, it's time to sign off. Thank you.